I'm not really a creep. Honest. No, really. I was acting out of character. Really. And I'm still not exactly sure why it happened. My behavior was probably the result of a lot of things. Like most people, I'd spend a lot of time alone. And winter out here can be really, really long when you're by yourself. Really. So, as restrictions eased and the snow melted away, I decided to leave my room and go for a walk in the big park in the center of town. I wasn't the only one to have that inspiration. The park was filled with literally hundreds of people, young and old, some with dogs, some on bikes, some jogging, all of them enjoying the heady perfume of the first intoxicating breath of spring. I was intoxicated too. It was glorious to be out with people again, and I'm sure I had a goofy, happy expression on my face as I strolled along with the crowd around the park's man-made lake. I can't exactly remember when I first saw her, but suddenly she was there among the crowd, a young woman about my age, tall and tanned, like the girl in that old Stan Getz Gilberto song, with a head of glossy black hair that hung down to her waist. But what had really caught my eye was the top she was wearing. A leopard skin top. It was a pretty bold and unusual garment for our staid prairie city. And it wasn't that warm out either. I don't think I had consciously decided to follow her, but was just keeping my eye on her as I walked along behind her. She was easy on the eyes. And so I walked along and tried to think of some way to approach her. But the only thing I could think of to say was, "Nice night, isn't it?" I know, lame. "Nice shirt?" Gosh, that was even worse. I know, lame. And so I followed in her orbit as we walked our way all around the lake. Now, most people make one circumference of the lake and call it a night, but not this lady. She decided to make another circuit of the lake, and I found myself trailing in her wake. Hey, that rhymes. The crowds were starting to thin, which made it easier to keep her in sight. But as I struggled along behind her, still trying to think of something witty to say, some way to introduce myself, I noticed an interesting phenomenon. No matter how fast or how slow I walked, she was always the same distance away from me. Always the same distance. I realized that unconsciously I was probably trying to avoid catching up to her, to not catch up to her. I still didn't know what I would say if I did. I know, what a wanker. I decided I would try an experiment, and so I picked up the pace to force myself to catch up to her. I just have to think of something witty to say. Okay, something to say, period. So I put on the speed, but without appearing to walk any faster. My mystery lady stayed just as far ahead, stayed exactly the same distance away from me. I slowed down. Same result. What was going on around here? This was weird. Was she hoping I'd catch up to her? I didn't think so. I thought I should just call it a night and go home. And, as I kept walking, I found I had another problem. I had to pee. Fortunately, our path was taking us past the public washrooms, so I would stop and attend to business and then call it a night and go home. At least, that was the plan. But when we reached the spot to turn off to go to the facilities, I found my feet wouldn't go where I wanted them to go, that they wouldn't leave the trail. I just had to keep on walking. And I had to go. Really bad. I continued trailing in my mystery lady's orbit, always the same distance from her, as we then made a third circuit of the lake. I was in agony. I had to go. But I couldn't turn myself away. I had hoped that she would finally call it a night. But no, she continued. Oh God, she was going to go around yet again. A fourth time. By now, there were fewer and fewer people in the park. They'd all gone home. It was also getting progressively darker, but I was still able to see her leopard skin top. I could also see her long tan legs, and I wondered why she didn't feel the cold. It was getting progressively chillier as the darkness took control. Finally, after holding it in for a solid hour, I couldn't take it anymore and released my bladder. In other words, I pissed my pants. Now I no longer wanted to encounter my mystery lady. 27 years old, and I'd pissed my pants. I wanted to get away, get home before anybody saw what I'd done. I wanted to get home and get cleaned up and forget all about the girl in the leopard skin top. And then suddenly, I realized she'd stopped moving, stopped walking, but was standing on the path, looking back at me, waiting for me. I wanted to turn away, to get off the path and slink away into the night. But I couldn't. Instead, I walked up to her, and she was smiling. I understand. You'd like to meet me. She was remarkably lovely, with flawless skin, tanned a deep golden brown, aquiline features and dark eyes, her black hair long, straight, and shining. She was so beautiful. She literally took my breath away. I was silent. Under the ridiculous circumstances, what could I say? What's the matter? Cat got your tongue? I began sputtering before blurting out, Who are you? She reached out a hand and tenderly brushed my cheek. I couldn't help noticing her long, sharp fingernails, painted jet black. They looked almost like claws. And then suddenly, they were claws which tore open my left cheek. I reeled back in agony, warm blood running down the front of my shirt as I put up my hands to prevent a fresh assault. But I could still see her face, which had taken on the features of a huge predatory cat, like a leopard or a puma, which snarled at me, snarled into my bloody face. I staggered away into the trees as I forced myself to run, the blood soaking my clothes. Somehow I made it to the nearby road, where I passed out. I spent nearly a month in hospital. I had a very upbeat plastic surgeon who kept chirping about how I was lucky not to have lost the sight in my left eye. He wasn't too concerned about the 4 angular scars now bisecting the left side of my face. But I was. I hadn't been much to look at to begin with. But now, when people saw me, they just stared. So I began to only go out after dark and to places where there were few people around. At work, I ate my lunch at my desk in order to avoid the staff room. I had tried to tell the cops what had attacked me, but they didn't believe it was a woman or a mountain lion. They thought maybe I'd been attacked by a rabid raccoon. Yeah, a rabid raccoon that fell out of a tree and landed on my head. Yeah, right. I was in the grocery store late one night when there were few people around, when I heard a voice say, "She got you too, eh?" Looking up, I saw a guy about my age, his face torn by near identical scars. A beautiful young woman, kind of like the girl in that old Stan Getz Gilberto song, wearing a leopard skin top. She caught your eye and you followed her, then found you couldn't stop following her until she finally stopped walking, and when you came up to her, she slashed her face. She did that to you too? Yup. What is she? Turns out they call her Puma Woman. A beautiful woman who can fascinate men before turning into a mountain lion to attack in order to what? Punish them? Punish them for being creeps? Puma Woman, a shapeshifter, a were-cat, a were-big cat. So in the end, was I responsible for what happened to me? Like I said earlier, I'm not really a creep. I felt I was acting out of character. But now I'm wondering, did she somehow hypnotize me? No one else in the park seemed to notice her. Was I prey? Her prey? We meet after dark in a donut shop that's never crowded. There's about 10 of us, each of our faces disfigured by angular slash marks from an encounter with Puma Woman. It's an exclusive club, but believe me, you don't want to join it. The moral of the story? To paraphrase the great philosopher Groucho Marx, never join any club that will accept you as a member. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs in 2022. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix here, that's PX here, while the music was the classic Ghost Story by the patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. Thank you for listening.